Welcome back everyone to this new video. Today I will make an overview of one of my favorite openings for black against e4, which is the Caro-Kann defense. I will cover in specific the advanced variation, and to be more specific, I will cover the move c5, which is known as the Botvinnik-Kars variation, which is variation I prefer over bishop f5. But before we get into the video, please remember to like and subscribe. The button is just down below and it helps me a lot. Also, I left the link to my Twitch channel in the comments, but having said that, we can get started. Alright, for those of you who don't know, we are gonna look at this from black's perspective. The Caro-Kann defense is when white goes e4, and now you're gonna play c6. Here we are in the Caro-Kann defense, and the idea is really simple. You want to play d5 and you want it to be supported by the c pawn, so that if white takes, you're going to take back with the pawn. Here white has several options, but the most critical one is to play d4. White can theoretically go bishop knight f3 and knight c3, but the move you're gonna face 90% of the time is d4. This is considered to be the main line. Here you're gonna play d5. Now, in this video, I will cover the advanced variation of the Caro-Kann defense, which is the move e5. But there are other variations. For example, there is the exchange variation. There is the knight c3 or knight f3 variation. There are a lot of variations, but the move e5 is really common, and the idea is that white wants to gain control over over squares in our territory and wants to gain a space advantage. Here, the move I recommend playing is the move c5. Now, the main line here is considered to be bishop f5, but bishop f5, even though it is the main line, I don't like very much, because here the bishop can just be a target. For example, there is the variation known as the Tal variation, which is when white goes h4. This is the Tal variation, and the idea is that white wants to play g4 and h5 and trap our bishop. White has several options in this position, which is the reason why I don't like this for black, because white can have an insane preparation and we can be outplayed in the opening. On the other hand, white will not have a thorough preparation against the move c5, because c5 is considered to be a slight sideline, even though it is perfectly fine. Now, this resembles the French variation when you play c5, but in the French variation you have a pawn on e6, and the difference is that without the pawn on e6, the bishop is still open, and this is the whole point of playing the Caro-Kann and not playing the French, because the two openings are really similar. But in the French defense, you have what is known as the French bishop, which is this bishop, which is often very passive, because with the pawn on e6, you're not able to bring it out and to develop it. So by playing the move c5 and not playing the move e6, you still have the option to develop it to f5 or g4. For example, if white plays knight to f3, you can play bishop g4, pinning the knight to the queen. The ideas here are really simple. You want to undermine the pawn structure in the center with move c5, and you want to play knight c6 and target these pawns. Here white has three options. Two options I believe you're gonna face 90% of the time in your games if you're rated 2000 or below. These moves are c3 or knight f3. These moves you're gonna face a lot if you're rated below 2000. If you are rated above 2000, which I don't think, because why are you watching this video? I mean, no, I'm kidding. This video is for everyone. But still, if you're rated 2000, or for example, if you watch a grandmaster play this game, play this position, you're gonna notice that one of the most played move in this position is d takes c5, and this is actually the way in which white can claim an advantage, because white really is asking us why are you moving the c pawn 2 times and now you're just gonna lose it. This seems like you're losing a pawn because white is taking it, and in fact we are really losing a pawn. So we're gonna look at this first, and then we're gonna look at c3, and we're gonna look at knight f3. Now, if white takes on c5, here you have to play e6, and you're gonna have to take the L for this bishop, which will not be able to be developed. And this is not the worst thing in the world, because by playing e6, you're gonna open up the bishop, and you're gonna threaten to take the pawn. This pawn cannot really be protected by a move like b4, because if white plays e4, you're just gonna play a5. And if white plays this, you're gonna take, and here we're gonna play b6. And if white decides to take, we're gonna take this with check, and after this, we're gonna take on b6, and this is gonna be protected. And white here is in a lot of trouble. So white cannot really protect this pawn with b4. If you look at Grandmaster's game, the most common move here is a3. But if you're if you're rated 2000 and below, you're not gonna face a3. And the idea is that you're giving up this pawn, but you're gonna kick the bishop out with move b4, and this is now protected by the pawn. But here you can just slide back to b6, and this bishop is gonna be very powerful if white ever plays the move f4 to protect this pawn. So if white plays a3, I don't know why white would play that move in one of your games. You're just gonna take on c5, and after b4, bishop b6, you're just gonna play normal. The idea is to play knight e7, knight g6 to target this pawn, knight c6 to target this pawn, although you have to be careful about this expansion on the queen side. So I would recommend playing knight e7, knight g6 to target this pawn. And again, if white ever plays f4, this bishop is gonna be a monster on this diagonal. And if white ever tries to trap it with move like c3, a4, a5, just play a6 and go back to a7. There's nothing to worry about here. But another move is in this position, which you might face, is knight to f3. Knight to f3 just gives this pawn, and you're gonna take it, and after white plays bishop d3, which is the thematic move of the Caro-Kann as white, you're just gonna put pressure on this pawn. You're gonna play this to put even more pressure on the pawn. And for example, let's say castle, you're gonna play knight g to e7, and after a move like this, you're gonna play knight g6, and you're gonna have a lot of pressure. And most often than not, white will have to take this, and you're just gonna have the two bishops. The variation where you need to be very precise is when white plays bishop to e3. In this case, you need to be very accurate, because this move protects this. So now you cannot take. The move that claims an advantage for black here is knight to d7. You're claiming an advantage because you're gonna fork these two pawns, and the only move that protects both of these pawns is bishop to e5 to b5. Here, the only move for black, I mean not the only move, but the move I recommend playing is knight to e7. And with knight to e7, you're preparing to go here or here. And if white, for example, let's say plays knight f3, protecting the pawn, now you go knight f5, and you're threatening to take the bishop and damage the pawn structure. And if white leaves the bishop here, you're just gonna take, and you're gonna be better, because this pawn structure is really bad. But if white plays bishop to f4, you're gonna take this bishop. But one of the most common moves in this position is bishop to d4. But here you have to remember this move, queen to a5 check, because the only move here is to play knight c3. Otherwise, you're gonna lose this bishop, and after knight to c3, you're gonna play a6. Now, white doesn't have to take. It can he can move the bishop back. However, this is not really good because you're gonna take on d4 and you're gonna take on c5 next with bishop, and the bishop here doesn't do anything. So white probably will have to take, and after takes, white can castle, but here you're gonna take, and if knight takes, you're gonna take with the queen, bishop e7 and castle. In this position, you have the two bishops, and you have a nice structure. You can start a minority attack on the queen side, which is an attack where you have a minority, in this case a 2 on 3 on the queen side, and this is a dream position for Caro-Kann players. Now, we just looked at what happens if white takes, but in this position, white doesn't have to take, and the move I believe you will face a lot in your games is c3. And here you don't have to worry about anything. You just need to play knight to c6, which not only puts pressure on the pawn on d4, but most importantly puts pressure on the pawn on e5. So if white ever takes this, now you're just gonna take on e5 if there are no tactical complications. For example, let's say here you're just gonna take, and you're gonna be slightly better because you have a central advantage. So so taking is not good for white, and one of the most natural move is knight to f3. If you see this move, just pin it, pin with bishop, and if white plays h3, you take, and you win a pawn. This is a clear winning of a pawn, and so just pin it. Best thing here to do is bishop to e2, but here again you can take the knight and play e6, and you're just gonna have this nice structure. The pawn is now protected by the bishop, and the main idea in these kinds of structures is that you want to keep the tension. You don't want to take and allow white to take back with the pawn, because otherwise because white really has a strong center. On the other hand, if you keep I'm sorry, I'm getting lost. All right. On the other hand, if you keep the tension in the center, at some point you can take, and maybe you have possibilities of taking back again with a move like queen to b6, which puts pressure in the position, and this is a really good position. And the idea is that you want to play knight to e7. Again, if white takes this, you're gonna take this, knight to e7, knight to f5, bishop e7, then castle, or at some point queen to b6, putting pressure in the position. For example, let's say here white castle, here you have knight g to e7, let's say, I don't know, rook e1, protecting this pawn. Here you can actually take, for example, because you have the move queen to b6, which puts pressure in the position. If the bishop moves here, you're just gonna take on b2 and you're gonna be fine. Or even knight to f5 is a move because it targets everything, and you're gonna develop and castle, you're gonna take on b2, and you're gonna be fine. Now, the last move I wanna look at is what happens if white plays knight to f3. Knight to f3 is the simpler of the three because you're just gonna take and play knight to c6. In this position, white doesn't have to take back with the knight, but why would he put the knight on f3 and then take with the queen? But taking with the queen, believe it or not, is actually fine. And after knight to c6, white will probably move the queen to f4. But I mean, I'm not convinced by this. You can just play this, and here you don't have to worry of closing your bishop because you cannot develop it here or here. So you can play e6, and after a move like knight to c3, you're just gonna play this, attack the queen, bishop to e7, castle, maybe f6. So I'm sorry. Taking with the queen is not the most accurate thing to do. White will probably take back with the knight, and here after knight to c6, white can play bishop b5, but you're just gonna play bishop d7. And if white takes, you're gonna take back with the pawn. You're gonna have a nice center. For example, you can play bishop f5, you can play e6, knight e7, knight g6, bishop e7, and castle. These are the ideas. Let's make a concrete example to end the theoretical part, and then I'm gonna play a blitz game where I will play this one of these variations. Let's say bishop to e3. This is not e3. This is d3. Let's say you play e6. Here white can castle. You're gonna play knight to e7. Let's say rook e1, for example, knight to g6, knight c3 developing. You're gonna play bishop to e7, and you see that by just playing normal developing moves, black is just fine. Here, for example, let's say move like this. You can even take this, and there is no weird thing here. You're just gonna win a pawn. If a bishop here, you can just castle. And again, as black, you're fine. There is nothing to worry about. All right, this is the end of the theory portion. Now I'm gonna play a blitz game, and I will try to get one of these positions so I can show you how I am playing these positions in my games. All right, we play against e4, and now we play c6, and this is the Caro-Kann. Right, d4. Let's hope he plays this. He doesn't. He plays knight c3. All right, against knight c3, we can actually take a rule of thumb is that if white leaves the pawn on e4, you can just take it. No need to worry about this. And now we can play this. And this actually resembles a Tartakower variation, but it's not really a Tartakower because there is no bishop to here, bishop here. So, but we can transpose. We transpose to the Tartakower. We can castle. Now, the idea of the Tartakower is that we have double pawns, but it doesn't really matter because we have a strong hold of the center. We can play this and we can get the square of pawns. I don't know what h4 does. I can play c5. In fact, I think I will. Let's play c5. We can play knight c6 afterwards. He can play c3, but then takes knight here. Or knight here, maybe. Just take it. Just take it. Why? Why didn't he just take back? Like, what the? Alright, now, do I have to exchange queens? Is the question. I don't think I have. I can play queen a5. Am I blundering something? Queen a5 here. Queen here, I don't think is a problem. I can move the bishop. But where? Where do I move the bishop? Alright, I can play rook here. Or to this rook. Which rook do I move? I think this rook. Because maybe I can play rook c8 afterwards. Alright, here I think I'll have to take and play bishop f8. Or, then I drop this. Yeah, I didn't think this through. I have to take and lose this, and whatever. We're just a pawn down, which is not the worst thing in the world. You know, he can play rook here or there, but what is the plan? Does he want to go here? I can play a6, rook here, a5, b5. Yeah, I think I'll do this. This guy is just trading off pieces because he can, but I think it actually benefits me. Rook here, what? Here is this. Let's play h6. I really can. You cannot move really because I'll just wait, I guess. Man, it's really hard. Do I go here? But if I go a5, yes, rook here. I guess I'll just wait. Yeah, he brings the king. Now I drop this and drop this as well. Yeah, let's just resign. Yeah, how? Rook e8, king here, and I got active. Yeah, I should have played this. I don't know why I didn't. All right. We didn't get the advanced variation, which is really unfortunate. And also, I lost my game, which is unfortunate as well. But I hope I showed you how you can implement the Caro-Kann plans into your game. So, as always, I hope you liked the video and see you in the next time.